Hello and welcome to another episode of the VR Download, a weekly show recorded live from the Upload virtual studios where we bring you the latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. My name is Kyle, operations manager at Upload VR, and let's meet the rest of today's panel. Over here to my right.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm the senior UK editor, as I believe it now says down there, but I can't see because if I try and look over, I'd see my living room.
And over here to my left.
Hello, I'm Harry, a news writer at Upload VR and community moderator.
What time is it, Harry?
Oh, it's 5 a.m.
5 a.m. in the morning podcasting, everybody.
Woohoo!
Ian Hamilton here, managing editor. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining.
And hello to Hussein and John, who both say hello. Hi, everyone, and hello from Massachusetts. Hi, John. Hello. Over to you in
Massachusetts.
I'm so bad at saying that. Massachusetts.
That's such a fun
Massachusetts.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So let's get into our news discussion this week and see what kind of fun stuff we have to talk about. So our first story this week is about Half-Life Alyx, an 80-person dev team. Wow, that's substantial. The game's done. It's finished, and Valve is confident that it will not be delayed. Now, Ian?
Believe it when I see it.
Do you believe that the game is done, ready for prime time, and ready for release?
I believe it. Yeah, I think they'll hit it. That comes from basically the way they announced it, right? They told us when we first got our first look at the Index hardware in, I think it was like March or April of last year. I can't remember the exact timeline. They said, we've got a flagship VR game coming this year for all Steam VR PC headsets. Obviously, that did not happen. What they did was they got to November and said, we're actually going to ship this in March. So, when they say that there was a Valve time figured into the development process, that difference between when they first told us they were going to ship in 2019 and actually announcing the game formally to a very wide audience in November was the Valve time. So I do believe it'll hit in March.
Valve time meaning right? That it took people a really, Valve is notorious for delaying projects and taking ages to get games out. Obviously, this is the first Half-Life game in over a decade. Valve time meaning it takes a really, really long time for Valve to do stuff, with good reason.
Do we think that the game was completely done in November, but the reason for the delay was possibly because of, I don't know, Index production or some strategic?
I mean, they did say they said in the AMA they did yesterday that the game is now finished and they're just like bug testing to get it to be like in the most perfect state by March.
Yep.
So it sounded like, from their phrasing to me, it sounded like not that they'd recently finished it, but like they were like, now we're in bug testing, we're just polishing things up, which didn't sound like it would have been in that state. In November.
Yeah, they specifically said they're working on the final scene, right? And that always makes me nervous because, they're going to want to make sure that that's a nice way to send off this first full VR game. So, I suppose something unexpected could come up. But yeah, I want to say we saw comments from people who said they played through the entire game. Jeff Keighley, I think. Pretty quickly.
And that was
right
before the game was announced, right? So that was like back last summer. Lots of people played it last summer. Phil Spencer from Xbox played it last summer. A couple of people
from
other
Half-Life
developers.
Alyx.
Yeah.
Summer. I thought they played it in November, December.
No. Some people played it all the way back in like August, September kind of time.
Wow. We've got a comment from Hussein saying, time for me to check out the best PC VR mods for Half-Life 1 and 2. We'll be playing them for the first time too. I actually am not sure. I've had a few comments on that because we wrote about the Half-Life 1 mod that you can put on Quest. The thing with that, though, is that it only works on the Quest because it's built on the Android that it runs on is only works on, not Android, the engine that it runs on only works on Android. So I don't know how... Are there PC VR mods for Half-Life 1 and 2?
I'm
presuming there would be, yeah.
That's Valve's kind of thing, isn't it? Everyone likes modding at Valve. That's where all their sequels come from. Like Team Fortress was originally a Half-Life mod.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dota 2 was a mod of something, probably Half-Life 2 in some strange way, I'm sure.
Are you hanging your controllers, or are you just super comfortable?
I am very, very comfortable right now. I always think when I'm sitting here, like resting, like my hands in my face, it must look super weird in VR.
You gotta try and line up your, because I've tried to line up my desk with my actual hands. You know, you gotta.
I try and line it up like I'm a Huawei martial artist fighting in VR.
Oh.
Anyway, that's an in-joke that we can maybe explain later.
So this is how I'm going to stand from now on.
Some more. So we got some more comments. We've got Hamad saying great, Deception saying oh yeah, Draken saying pretty sure they finished Alyx around the same time they went on holiday last year. All this time just been polished. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Do you know what Valve does? I don't know if it's still this actually, but it used to be that Valve every year would take all of its employees to Hawaii for a week.
I remember
once
that.
actually, my brother knew someone that worked at Valve, and when he got back from that week, he gave me his Hawaii T-shirt. It's really weird. Anyway,
you've got a Valve.
Anyway, now we
Hawaii
should do
t-shirt.
something like that.
I do remember reaching out to Valve, in December, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to take a break. Talk to us in the new year." So I don't know. I don't know if it was Hawaii, but
we'll only respond via post, and it has to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
So there's another component to this that I think we need to touch on. An 80-person dev team. 80 people worked on this
Valve,
game.
Like, ignoring VR, Valve said that's the biggest team they've had on any project. Right? They said at any one time it's the most of it. So it's, even though it's huge for VR, it's also huge for Valve. Because also, if it... Yeah, go on.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, even if, if it still works the way it used to, when, you used to report on things, at Valve, you can choose what you work on, right? You could have got the whole desk rolling thing where you just roll your desk over to someone and work on projects you want to. And so it's like, you don't have to, no one's standing there being like, you have to work on this, which hypothetically, if that really is still the case, it means no one's actually been forced to work on
That can't still be the case, though.
Why
you wouldn't think so, but I mean...
Well, because they have to get a game out in March.
But they've always stood by it in the past.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I agree,
I could see that where 80 people are saying, "Yeah, I want to work on the next Half-Life game."
Yeah,
I mean, I could imagine working there.
That's true, right?
Like, you'd have to turn people away, I would imagine.
How many people? How many people do they have working on those other 2 VR games, if they still exist? Though that's a good question.
Well, no, that's the thing. I mean, I think it's really the most encouraging thing about it is that you've now got 80 people within Valve that are, drenched in the ins and outs of what it means to make VR content, and assuming this game is as big as it, as Valve hopes it will be, it could really encourage a lot of people, hopefully it's got some converts in there, because I think there's a fair number of people within Valve that are probably pretty skeptical of, we had those comments from the Valve dev saying, it's a pain to do VR development where you've got 4 different headsets sitting on your desk, you've got to plug them in, you've got all the different bugs that you can have with every different headset. So it's a pain to make sure this thing runs on every different system. But now Valve has done a lot of the hard work in smoothing out the development process. So that's hopefully the next project's way easier for them to make.
I would be curious what the 80-person team actually is doing. So do they have 79 artists and 1 dev?
Yeah, what's the breakdown?
1 coder?
Yeah.
Right. Now that I know 80 people, I'd love to know the breakdown. So go ahead and share that information with us, Valve.
How many of those people are specifically like, I don't know, you think 80 people are working on Alyx, and you can think, well, maybe they've got 5, I don't know, concept artists who don't actually deal with, like, they're working on a VR game, but it's not quite like as involved with the VR side of things. Some of those people couldn't actually not be doing stuff that's so entrenched in VR.
Right, there could be 5 QA, QC people. Yeah. There could be,
just
12
to point out,
audio people.
Draken said too, which is kind of what we were touching. Draken said, so 80 people wanting to take part is very good, as if they were rolling their desk over, which I think is the point. If they're still going with that system of people, choosing what they work on, they have ultimately got 80 people on board, which is cool.
The important thing to point out here is that it's not really just 80 people working on Half-Life. That is 80 people that have something to prove about VR, like kind of what Ian was saying at the end of the day, right? But it's almost, you could almost argue it's 80 people trying to sell people on Index and PC VR in general, as much as it is Half-Life, because no VR game has been as talked about this much so far. It's going to be the moment that the entire industry, the entire gaming industry is finally watching.
Looking at it.
Yeah.
Gerald said, I agree with Kyle, but it also makes me wonder how amazing this game must be if that many people really want to work on it. And then Surreal Deal said, do you guys talk with your hands so much on purpose? What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean.
Got to do something.
It's a fair question. I mean, like, it helps to redirect. Like, so Harry is in Australia, Jamie's in England,
UK,
Kyle's
UK
in Seattle, and I'm in Southern California. And there is latency to grapple with in making sure that we're signaling to one another we want to talk, we want to, butt into this conversation, and so it helps to kind of like, by the way, and
and I think it's a way of being like, because I don't have my hands on my body, I'm kind of like, well, I need to have something to, it's like a presence thing, I got to.
Plus, Facebook are dumb and they won't spring for hand tracking on Rift, so we have to have these.
No, it's a good question, though. I mean, the whole point of this, I mean, I do emote a lot when I talk, especially to groups of people and things like that. So for me, it's just natural. But there does seem to be, I'm inclined to talk with my hands and my body because I know you can't see my eyes, so you can't tell. I mean, this is all fake. My mouth, this isn't my mouth.
It's all fake? What do you mean?
It's all fake.
What do you mean?
Man.
This is not to go off on too much of a tangent here, but this is the other weird thing about this podcast we don't tell other people about. The correction algorithm, or whatever you want to call it, in the Rift, the Facebook avatars, is if I'm like looking at Kyle, but then I slightly look over here to Harry, like the computer wants me to think that Harry's talking to me, so Harry's just intensely staring at me while Carl is talking. It's really, really strange. So anyway, there are some weird social dynamics going on in this.
John said, does the virtual studio you're in on screen similar to what you see in your own headsets, and who controls the camera angles? So basically, we won't go on too much of a tangent. We all look like we're sitting in our seats, and then we have Heaney, who is broadcasting, and he controls the cameras.
Heaney God.
He's on his own separate version.
We should do a tour of the studio
with some elevator music.
I mean, this is literally half of it. I mean, there's some chairs over there.
There's another side of the room over there where we teleport over to do the interview segments when we do them, and we've got that interview earlier in the week to the top.
And Gerald said, when are you guys going to add live audience support? I think it's maybe quite a while away. We wouldn't get your hopes up for that one. But anyway.
No plans before then. I've just realised that also that I've just thought about the fact we have lockers in one side of the room and a water cooler over in one side of the room. I don't think they're ever actually on screen. What is he?
No, we have some other props.
I've never put anything in there.
We should get some Tesla suits to put inside the lockers.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting off topic here. Let's
anyway,
get back to the So Half-Life. So confident that it won't be delayed. That's a very bold statement to make. That means that they I can't imagine it being delayed a second.
It's a bold statement.
It's
a bold statement to make publicly. Like internally, I'd be like, "No, I'm making much." But when they come out the AMA and they're like, "No, we're confident." It's kind
of brutal that it's like the same day as like they could do March 31st into April 1st and make it an April Fool's Day thing. That would be brutal. Please don't wait until March.
Don't even go there.
To that point,
no, it'd be like April 1st. It's not VR. Half-Life Alyx available now on PC.
To that point, me and Harry were saying a couple of days ago is that we're all saying it won't be delayed, but how do we know they're not shooting for March 1st right now and it does end up being March 31st? They've given themselves 4 weeks of leeway.
They're shooting
still,
for March
just
1st,
in case.
and they're like, now if we need it, we've got 4 extra weeks of bug testing, guys.
Yeah,
we'll just say we're always planning for March 31st.
Here's a good question. When do you think they're going to announce the actual date? Do you think they'll announce it in February, or do you think sometime in March they'll just say, here it is?
I bet they don't announce it at all. I bet it'll just drop one day.
It'll just put your headset on and there'll be a head grab.
I'll throw this curveball out there. What Facebook plans are there for March?
Oh.
Because, they did make their index announcement carefully timed for the middle of the F8 keynote with Mark Zuckerberg, the executives of Facebook up on stage to announce their plans. And then in the middle of that, they said, by the way, we've got this VR headset. You should go check it out.
That's a great point.
Surreal Deal
Facebook has
just
big plans this year.
Surreal Deal just commented Horizon.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure if Horizon has the push to kind of overshadow Half-Life, but that's an interesting point. What if they just are sitting on Horizon and kind of drop stuff on that?
What if they hack Horizon and then at one point, you're in Horizon, flying your plane like this, everyone's having a really good time. Just in case you're listening, I'm waving my hands around to signify the plane flying. And then a crowbar just rips through reality And Gordon Freeman steps in and says, "Come with me if you want to live." And everyone's like, "Oh my god, Gordon Freeman's talking!" And then he just takes you into Half-Life Alyx. I think that's probably what's going to happen, right?
I'd pay to see that.
It'd be pretty good.
Scott Mugford said, "Do we know how long the game is going to take to play through?" And Mr. Man said, "I can't remember, but I think it's about 10 plus hours. I'm pretty sure it's about 8 hours, isn't it?"
Someone said someone in the Ask Me Anything session said it was taking people about as long as Half-Life 2, and I think Jeff Keighley said somewhere upwards of 10 hours. I think he said it somewhere upwards of 10.
But... Okay, yeah.
I've heard 10.
We should mention like Boneworks. Like, what was the range they gave us in that? But it took me 12 hours, and it took you 6. So I mean, like the range of VR games is extraordinary.
And I can imagine, like with everything looking so detailed in Alyx, I can imagine if you just want to walk around and explore things and just like go through drawers and rummage through the drawers.
They said it took you 12 and it took you 6.
Yeah, well, I'm just a pro gamer on it.
If we do, I was just going to say, if we do co-op, Jamie, I'm on your team.
Yeah, fair enough. But you will spend a lot of time in there. Like, it will be really detailed. One of the great things they said in that AMA is that people spend a lot of time just putting buckets on the head grabs, and then it all works together. So the buckets are just moving around on the floor. It's going to be great.
And then it was reported as a bug as well. Apparently, playtesters were like, no, it's not.
no, moving buckets.
Working
you
as
put a bucket on a head crab, of course.
Yeah. Hey, let's move on to the next topic for this week. Another piece of news, Facebook removes Oculus Go from its new enterprise VR platform right after the closed beta, leaving
Ian's raising his
only
hands.
the Quest.
Ian's raising his hands
Quest.
in victory.
Ian is so excited about this.
Ian murdered 3 degrees.
Good night, sweet prince.
I'd say he's vindicated by this, I would say.
I'm going to make a little award. So you've seen the little metal quests that they've been sending out to people from I'm going to make one. It's going to be a quest, or it's going to be a Go, and it's going to say RIP 3 Doff, and then Ian Hamilton underneath it.
I'll donate my Go to that cause. You can do whatever you want to it.
We can bronze
smash it up and put in bronze. Yeah.
You'll donate the Go. You'll break it down for parts.
Yep. I mean, that's the thing. Like I had 2 of the Mirage Solos. Somehow they sent me 2 through some
they were just
weird
giving those things away
situation, and I disassembled that to take a look inside. It was pretty interesting because there's like giant heat sinks and stuff, and saw the other one if we ever wanted to use that little 3DOF controller.
So I want to bring up the concept of enterprise because I've had a lot of discussion about the concept of, a company's going enterprise, that it doesn't have a consumer level product anymore. It's all enterprise. Is that like oops, we didn't make a product that is valuable enough for average consumers, so we're just going to sell it to business people because they'll get it?
I mean, isn't that what Magic Leap tried to do recently? Have I got that right? Was it Magic Leap?
Well, I'm seeing a pattern here.
No.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, does anybody else think that way, that going to enterprise is like giving up on consumer?
No. Okay, so I got some thoughts here. Like, all right, you've got a product that you've put out into the market, and it's not selling well, and suddenly you've got to figure out, how the heck do I get my next funding round for my startup, right? So you need to somehow get investors to cough up, in Magic Leap's case, $1 billion or $500 million to fund another 2 years of having 1,000 people, very highly skilled engineers working on the future of object recognition, environment recognition, and you need to pay these people hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to keep them working at your company. So you need billions of dollars to employ all those people. How do you sell that story to investors and the market when your product is not selling well? And the only thing that makes sense to me is you say, we're focusing on the enterprise market.
Yeah.
For years.
And of course, there's a good fit there, right? Because in theory, the enterprises have different needs, right? They need support. They need, they need to have a phone number they can call to get help and get something worked out, because time is money, and every minute that your hardware isn't working you're paying people to work with something that doesn't work. So you need to have someone you can call and get help. So you need good support, and there's different services enterprises need, so they're less price sensitive. They're willing to pay for that extra service. So there's a lot of reasons to make that change of focus. But it's kind of like a chicken and the egg problem with some of these companies where
sort of, yeah,
they're not going to beat Facebook at $400. So we got to change the story up a little bit.
Harry, are there
Just
comments?
Yeah, I got some comments. So we got Real Deal said very disconcerting. Go is being used for training in many companies. John Bardo said explains the price drop, which yes, I think that definitely ties in. And then Real Deal also said hopefully Oculus is giving companies incentives to switch to Quest. Business VR is what's driving the industry incognito to most people. Hard to get said. 3DOF must be banned. That's your kind of the little like what looks like a little blue, little like smiley grinning.
To be clear,
face.
3DOF hardware is the issue, not 3DOF content. That's been some of the debate out there. Like there is a wealth of history in VR development that is literally locked into the 3DOF ecosystem, and it's going to be a huge bummer when we can't. Smash Hit is the example. I absolutely do love Smash Hit from the original Oculus Go Gear VR eras. Such an amazing game that even reminds me of Pistol Whip, where you're traveling down this hallway and you've got simple physics to throw out these balls.
Obligatory Pistol Whip mention. Well done. You got it.
It's similar, yeah. Did you?
What's that like? Every episode so far? I'm joking.
All right, so no, but Smash Hit is an amazing game, and it's not available on my Quest. I can't get Smash Hit, and it's kind of a tragedy to have that little bit of history unavailable on this headset.
Well, okay, was Smash Hit available ever on Go?
Yeah, it did. You wrote a story. You remember when you specifically wrote a story when it came out, like 2 weeks or something after the release of Go.
Not every Go game works on Quest.
Right, yeah.
No, yeah.
The problem is there was Smash Hit Thunder.
There
was there's another game that had the exact same name, and it always confuses me when I search for it.
Is there a reason that every Go game can't work on Quest? Like, why are they not all?
Yeah, it's the way it's designed.
I'm sure it's the way it's designed. Yeah, I'm sure there's this is me just being, simplifying it, being like, why doesn't it just work? But like, I mean, yeah.
Well, I don't really want that. I mean, this will kind of feed into what we're talking about later, but I don't really want the Go library in its entirety on Quest.
Yes, it's true. Well, yeah, it is
we just
hidden
wrote
away.
Today. I mean, like Henry and Dear Angelica are both playable today on Oculus Quest, but they're only the 3DOF versions, and that's a tragedy. It's particularly with Dear Angelica, which is amazing in 6DOF, and they've even got the Quill Theater that should make it work.
Yeah,
just got some comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go through. We got C. Michael Neely. Education has already invested heavily in 3DOF HMDs, and for VR to get serious traction, then headsets like the Go do still have relevance. Mistake to pull out this soon on the Go. Hussein said, I would buy 3DOF Go 2 over Quest any day, in brackets, assuming the price is right. I need Go more than I need a Quest. I do have a Rift. And then Gerald McAllister said, announce a halfway Quest of some sort at F8, which I think that's a possibility. Dean Pritchard said, going enterprise is often price point. Businesses generally can/are willing to spend more. Plus, they have greater buying power because they buy larger quantities, which drives down average cost. And Hussein said, 6DOF talk on Go needs to die. 3DOF on Go needs to live. 6DOF on Go is a waste. And
quick, type that into your calculator. What do you get?
Sorry?
42.
Thank you. Ian got the joke.
I didn't follow.
As a real deal said, Go is fantastic for media. Do we think that they're going to do like a halfway Quest that's like maybe hand tracking?
Well, wait,
a Go replacement.
No. We will get eventually a $200 headset that's based around hand tracking. That is 6DOF, moving your head around. The question is whether that system will have an optional, add-on for adding the touch controllers so that it's a full Quest. No, there will be a system sometime down the line.
I believe it.
Could you just sell the Quest by itself with that touch controllers at a reasonable price point that maybe is slightly more than the Go full price?
Not today.
No,
not today.
At some point, sure, but at some point, not today. These things are not that expensive.
Time? No.
3 years.
3 years.
Will we still have the Quest as like this model of Quest in 3 years? I mean, I guess.
Keep in mind that they told us originally that the iterations of the headsets was going to be on par with consoles.
But
then they upgraded and they said it's going to be more like cell phones. But how often do people upgrade their cell phones? I mean, some people do it every year. Other people are still holding Motorola Razr flip phones from early 2000s. I mean,
The one that they
there's a lot of elements there because Facebook has a lead right now. They've somehow scared Google out of the market and scared they're crushing HTC, it seems, out of the market for consumers to a certain extent. And they've got a lead here, and you don't want to lose that lead by holding back advances that you can get out into the market before everyone else. Like I think there's a hint in there that they got the hand tracking out there a little bit earlier than they promised, and it's not been great. There's been some bugs with the hand tracking because it's a little shaky, but it's still clearly an experimental feature, and they're still going to improve it, and they're probably going to build future headsets around hand tracking as a major input system, and they can't have that shake on actual products built around that input system. But I think there's such pressure on Facebook to maintain its lead that old expectation that it's going to take a lot of years to replace these systems was in speaking about the PC market, which has turned out to be the only competitive space for for VR
so far.
I think Gerald's made a good point, and then he said Apple couldn't fight off Google during the smartphone days, but succeeded against Microsoft. Scott Mugford said 3 years from now, I think the OG Quest will be the go of 2020 because the next Oculus headset will surely be able to play PC games wirelessly, since we know the tech is possible with virtual desktop. Interesting point. And Gerald said Facebook managed to kill off both Google and Microsoft efforts in VR. Makes me curious how Apple will handle Facebook. Yes,
I really hope for some surprising team ups this year. I think that's what it's time for. Google,
between who?
Google, Apple, Valve, Sony. There needs to be some
trifecta,
some surprising.
The Avengers of VR.
Call their rings, get Captain Planet to come down with an amazing new VR headset.
Nick Fury needs to assemble the Avengers of the VR industry.
Basically, yeah.
Harry, I'll tell you what, we'll give you that job. We'll poke one of your eyes out.
All right, cool.
We'll have a cat scratch your eye out. Spoiler alert.
Just shit me around the world.
There you go.
Sounds good. I'd do that in a heartbeat. I'd be like, Gabe.
Well, I personally
think the VR initiative.
Yes. I personally don't think we're going to see a Go 2. I don't think we'll even see a Quest 2. I think whatever comes out next will be there's no sense in releasing something even at a lower cost that's inferior to what the current Quest is. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Okay, let's say you are getting on stage at F8 or OC, whatever, and you have to make a entirely new product line. You're replacing everything. What do you envision the product line is? So nothing's being carried over. You're doing all new updates of everything, but what do you keep and what do you get away? What is their new product line?
So you're asking me for my dream headset?
Well, what would you think Facebook reasonably would do? Perhaps not your dream.
So
for its next
sixth
standalone.
off, yes, that's good. Yeah, that's a good it's an easy way of putting it. All the capabilities of the Rift S, but standalone, hand tracking, and better comfort, smaller form factor. Yeah, I mean that's in wireless connectivity to a PC. So link, wireless link.
There's only one headset, or do you have it? Because surely you have two.
Yeah, but that's a staggered thing they do. They're not going to announce it entirely new.
They're not going to announce it new. They're not going to replace everything at once.
Unless they suddenly, strangely release a Rift and a Quest on the same day. But that seems like a really silly move.
Going upstream from Quest seems to be the next, marker, right? If you could bring over the Halo strap, put a battery in the back, and extend battery life, get those specs of the Rift S so that you can match the frame rate and make it a $600 or $800 product, and I think that thing would sell like hotcakes. There'd be a lot of people that would upgrade from their Quest.
And Adam said Oculus will absolutely iterate on Quest with a Snapdragon 855. That's the other thing too that they could chuck in there to make an upgraded Quest.
Toss it in there, just flick it in there,
just casually, just quickly chuck
very accurately through the USB-C.
That's how engineering works. Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Just like that.
It is.
They send an email like, please put in 855. Thank you. Zuck.
Then suddenly Boneworks is just on it.
There's some developer just chucking things in it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to another piece of Facebook news. Facebook has released a fix for the Rift stuttering issues through the PTC, which is the public testing channel. Yes, and so if
Woo.
you have that turned on and you're opted into that, you would have gotten an update. And
But doesn't work with Link.
well, it
is
does
the
not work
important
with
thing.
Link.
Because
Right.
Link doesn't work with the PTC. Because I know, because I was
Oh,
playing a game
God.
the other day and I hadn't noticed it, and I did notice the stuttering issue. I did get it on my
You did?
using Link.
Okay, good.
Yes, I have used it, and it's quite frustrating. But you can update if you have a Rift. Obviously, you can update to PTC, and that's been fixed. But Quest Link does not work with PTC. Which actually I've had a lot of people on our Discord server and whatnot. I had someone yesterday that was like, I can't figure out why Link's working or not working. What's the issue? Sometimes people are opted into the PTC and don't even realize it because they've had it on for forever or whatever. So yeah, if Link's not working, check PTC. 2, you can't actually do it for the stuttering issue. But it's good that they fixed it because it was pretty widespread from what we saw online.
So
and quite frustrating.
Considering what Link is actually doing, which is streaming the whole thing to your headset from the PC, not an actual interface, but it's streaming it, what type of update could they have possibly done that caused stuttering there and other stuff? I'm always wondering, like,
it was something. It was just because something the way that it was. I don't know how it works, but it was because it was acting as a rift. So whatever affected the rift affected Link as well. It was something to do with the image, like not. I don't know. It gets really almost like choppy.
Was it dropping frames or was
it was dropping? It was kind of like dropping
low
frames
compression
and then
rate?
just like no, it was dropping frames.
Okay.
I think
that was my issue at least.
I think John Carmack just like kicked a server on his way out the door. That's what he did. He broke it.
Yeah.
Damn it, John.
I can see it now.
Facebook will be seeing him next.
Bye, guys. Oh,
Yep.
What was that? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
He wouldn't apologize though. Not John. Not John.
So
John
it took
Carmack
him a
makes
month.
no apologies.
It took him a month to fix this. What do we have to say about that? Ian, are you curious about the length of time it took? Were they having a hard time figuring out what the problem was?
Yeah. It's brutal, and to Teeny's point, I think he wrote the article. He's been following the stuttering issues and the PC updates. It's clear that PC is not the priority at Facebook anymore. It's Quest, and it really, it's understandable that the priority is Quest. But that doesn't
it's not the first time it's taken them a long time to fix like a very significant issue. Do you remember like back in the day, I think just after the original touches launched, and people were starting to add 3 or 4 sensors to their Rift setups, they had really big problems with that for a long, long time. I don't think anyone was necessarily, well, they might have been, but it didn't strike me that someone would have been sleeping on this issue for a month.
Well, okay, so yeah, they've got hundreds and hundreds of people working on VR at Facebook, so that, and I don't know the structure of their internal teams, but just yes, clearly they could have had people working on this, and PC issues are surely incredibly hard to solve because you've got,
as we all know,
such a range of hardware, and it's so hard to diagnose. So all that's completely understandable. But if you have a limited number of people and you need to get the hand tracking to stop wiggling, or you need to get the stuttering issue to be fixed on PC, which team do you assign more people? I think you put more people.
Those are 2 entirely different like engineering problems though.
You might not but you might not have the same, you might not have 2 different sets of engineering people to work on them.
It's Facebook, dude. Of course they do.
Well,
in their defense, they have the
that,
people. They have the bodies to throw at. It's just,
who knows?
I mean, the hand tracking team's all in London, so it's all different.
Are they?
Plus, they haven't fixed the recording on the Quest yet, so clearly they hate Quest 2.
Don't get me started out recording on the Quest.
Oh,
I could rant about that all day. It's horrific. It's just, yeah. Anyway, we got a lot of comments. Just to go back quickly to the last topic, there a lot of people are saying the Snapdragon XR2 will be the next Quest processor. We've got lots of information on that.
Let's play bets.
Yeah.
And
let's start the nerdiest betting thing in the world.
We should do a poll. Yeah.
Do a poll, yeah. And Gerald said, I suspect Oculus is understaffed compared to the amount of work they have to do.
yeah.
And then C. Michael Neely said, we can never count on Apple ever. Surreal Dealer said, I disagree, Gerald. Facebook is all in one on VR. And Gerald said, a combination of Facebook supposedly struggling to hire people, plus lack of engineering interest in VR, brackets from at least the anecdotal data I've seen. And what else have we got? Mr. Man said, wondering if you guys think controllers that take advantage of EM tracking, like Atraxas, will ever make their way to inside-out headsets like the Quest, which is a different topic.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a little heavier, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't test that enough at CS to really get the latency feel. to
Is this
really
the
know whether.
electromagnetic thing?
Yeah, the one where you're
someone
able to
explain to
put
me
the
what this
controllers
is.
behind your body
Yeah, it's the
and see how they
electromagnetic.
track.
Okay, yeah.
And you could reduce the number of. You could theoretically reduce the number of cameras you need to have on the headset in order, by replacing it with this magnetic stuff. But I think Facebook seems to be going in the direction of making these things lighter rather than heavier. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a toughie
Michael
with
Neely-
third party controllers and the other types of technology. Every controller has its different
Pros and cons.
challenges. The EM, if you're a big music person and you got speakers all over and magnets. I mean, there's a very good possibility for interference. I mean, look at what the Razer Hydra, there was that, that rounding, almost like a distortion in the field because of the way it was emitting. There's all sorts of different, I mean, look, STEM itself was having all sorts of challenges. So
Wow,
I'm wondering
STEM.
about the technology. I know, right?
Oh,
Hi, Amir.
wow, that's taking me back.
I can't help but wonder if optical versus other forms of tracking is going to be a real discussion in the future.
No, what I'd like to see is better haptics, like a better range. So I've heard this argument. I think I can't mention them, otherwise you're gonna make fun of me. But like, if you want
Let's
a
just
gun
call them
accessory,
Whistle Pip.
yeah, whistle pip. No, but like
Whistle
imagine an actual accessory
I'm making that game.
that feels
Okay.
more 1-to-1 with a gun or more 1-to-1 with a bat, but it's very small and it's you hold it in your hands and it's tracked using some kind of optical tracking system. But like, since Facebook is clearly working so hard on optical tracking, there's the potential of getting rid of those tracking rings and doing something that's even smaller form factor and maybe is more 1-to-1 and has better haptics with specific game types.
And
I
no
can
longer.
they could
imagine
always
going.
They can always go with the big rubber balls, the light up balls.
The giant light up ping pong balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that worked out so well for Sony.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And every other ping pong ball system. Let's go to some comments. Gerald said an engineer had mentioned to me that Gen 1 could have been lighter, but they decided to add more. I think this is in regards to touch controllers, to add more heft since it felt better, which I kind of agree with. And then Anon Mason said,
I would have liked better haptics, right? They did something. They went backwards on the haptics there. You've got really nice haptics in the index controllers, and these touch controllers don't have that same vibration.
Well, I have one controller that doesn't have any haptics at all. This controller doesn't buzz.
I don't think we can we can't call them haptics. It's just
I can't wait for these controllers to break
it's just
so
buzzing,
that I can break them open and see if they've got the secret messages.
Oh, that's right.
Because for those of you that don't know, some Facebook engineers put secret messages inside the very first batch of these Oculus Touch controllers, and like if you break them open on some ribbon, it says like Facebook is watching or something. Cookie. I can't remember what it says.
Yeah, congratulations, you found the secret message.
Yeah. It's like good fortune will come to you this week. Look to the skies.
Ian, what if you break it open and there's just a camera inside?
Or it's the picture of Zuck.
Yeah, and it just says, I'm watching you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the last piece of news for this week. So it looks like Lenovo has announced a 4K Oculus Go competitor for classrooms.
Cool.
A Go competitor?
It's not
well, I mean, a Go competitor in that it's 3D off. That's
okay.
Right.
And it's for classrooms.
So one thing they did early on when they did, obviously Lenovo partnered with Google for the whole Mirage Solo experiment. Obviously that didn't go very well. Daydream's not really a thing anymore. But one of the things Lenovo announced really, really early on was that they would be bringing the Mirage Solo to classrooms. And obviously that was quite an expensive headset. It was a technically challenging headset because it had 6DoF tracking up here, but as we were saying earlier, only 3DoF tracking with one controller down here, and those things didn't really match very well. And at the same time, they're still running like Google content, right? Google Expeditions is the platform they have, which is a bunch of like 360-degree virtual tours and stuff like that, like real life images, a bit like Street View, basically. And so I guess a 6DoF expensive headset didn't really make sense for that initiative at the end of the day, right? I mean, when you're talking about the classroom, it makes way more sense to keep things simple, I don't know how much Ian agrees with this, but keep things simple.
We're all just looking at Ian,
keep
like
it,
waiting.
Well,
yeah, like make sure kids can't break it. They don't run around their classroom and fall into a desk. That can happen.
Just to sum it up, right? I think IPD fixing, IPD adjustment to make sure that the optics are really tuned for a wide range of eye distances, and sixth off, those are comfort features. Those are things that relate to how long you want to have the thing on your head before you have a headache, before you feel so uncomfortable that you really need to take it off. And
Yeah.
I've put the early Daydream views on enough friends and family to see them
but then
reaching up to their heads to keep it up to their eyes, and seeing this fitting issue returning again and again and again. And all I care about is that when people put these things on their heads, it fits them right and they feel comfortable for as long as possible. And you don't do that with a cheap
we're talking about the
headset.
environment of a classroom here, right? Which is a very, very different thing. That's going to be limited time usage, probably only they started doing this with cardboard early on. 5-10 minutes in a headset, take it off, write in your textbook, then go back in.
Even 30 seconds, to look at something, look around, and take it off. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and what happens if you've got 30 sixed off headsets all tracking where they are in a classroom? I don't know, maybe.
But not where they are in relation to each other. They're all just running into each other.
I agree with what Ian is saying, though. I think it's very valuable to make sure that the comfort and the IPD. I mean, I have young children that are doing VR in my home, and I always make sure when I say, it's funny because it's become a routine. Dad, I'm going to go play on the Quest. Okay, make sure you have the IPD set correctly, or change it for your sister, because we know everybody's IPD, and it's important. Even at 15 minutes or 30 seconds, it's important to have that set correctly. And especially in a classroom, you've got kids with, all different sizes and shapes of heads and widths of eyes. Adults, it kind of standardizes a little bit, but with kids, it could be all over the place. And you don't want to be responsible for a bunch of cross-eyed kids 10 years from now, And I'm not necessarily saying that would happen, but, it could.
So what you're saying is Lenovo is making an army of cross-eyed children who are going to grow up hating VR.
Well, no. Just because Lenovo's making this product doesn't mean classrooms are going to use it.
Correct. True.
I think the 30 seconds, to 2 minutes is a really good point from Jamie. Why not just have Gear VR type, cardboard systems and limit them literally to less than 2 minutes to just look around, to get that sense of depth and location, and then take it off and write on your report.
Yeah. Google's got a whole system in place for that, but we should really look into one day. But I think the thing makes total sense if it's affordable and it brings VR to the classroom in a unfussy manner. I think it's a smart move, definitely more so than bringing the last one over.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I do think that VR belongs in the classroom. I think there's a lot of really great educational stuff that can be utilized. I just think it needs to be done correctly. I think there needs to be precautions, and this is just the dad in me talking, but I want to make sure it's done correctly, because if I'm not in the classroom, then how do I know what type of there almost needs to be some rules laid down for
I can
how
imagine
this.
rocking up to the classroom.
No playing bird
set the IP. It's like if you set you walking up parent teacher night, being like, "Now just have some issues with the IPD settings."
Yeah, the teacher's like, "Huh?"
To take a step back here and just really be clear, Facebook and I think Sony both say 12 years or older on these headsets for for that safety reason, and it's like we've got a very weird position, a very awkward position here, where we're parents and we have families and friends who see this amazing.
Also, nope. I have no friends.
People doing fun things in VR and getting begged by kids and teens to spend time in there, and not wanting to deny them the thing that feels fine on my head and is perfectly comfortable to me, while also being very cognizant and aware that this is not approved and recommended. I went to one of those Dreamscape, I think it's Dreamscape Immersive, and there was a 6 or 7 year old that was putting on the backpack to go through the thing, and they basically more or less lied, I think, about their age to the demo person, to get this kid into VR, and the kid got lost in the middle of an underground tunnel. Like, so we're going through this temple or something, and it's very scary, Indiana Jones like, and the kid is like half the size of everyone else because of the way that like it's like a fully formed adult avatar, but like sized to half size.
Oh,
and
wow.
she just is lost, and I'm hearing her
It's a one way
audio
to break
like
immersion.
in my head, like, where am I? Type. That's
Like,
the
this doesn't
worst
look like
possible
home.
thing. Yeah.
I just got some comments. Chris said, I'm having a really hard time getting IPD to work great with Rift S. All headsets need to have physical IPD adjustment. Agreed. And Mason said in response to that, yeah, that's one part of the Rift S I don't like, but I got used to it. And then Chris said, luckily I also have an Index, and I use that much more. Only use Rift S for the exclusives because it hurts my eyes, which I think is also something that Ian can relate to. But yes, physical IPD adjustment, the way to go.
Yeah.
I've joked for years that I'm going to have my IPD tattooed on my arm, so that way I always have it available. It's that
just
important.
Like memento, yeah.
Yeah, it's that important of a piece of information that I want it. I want it always with me.
Make sure you really don't forget it.
Exactly. But I am looking forward to seeing VR in the classroom, and I know my kids are as well. Okay, so that's the news for the week. I think it's time to move on to our next section, the release of the week. So the release of the week is where we talk about any new games that we've played this week. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that was released this week, but something that we've played. So I'm going to start over here. Jamie, what have you played this week?
Well, obviously, the big thing that is out this week that I've played a little of and David has reviewed is The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, which is the big new zombie VR massacre game, seeing as there's no better word for it. Out now on PC VR headsets. It's coming to PSVR, I think in like a couple of months. There's no date.
I think it's Q3, they said.
It's Q3 for Quest. And I think PSVR is meant to be coming.
I think it's Q4 for Quest. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well,
I think Q3 is PSVR and Q4 is Quest. So it's still.
It's going to be a hard game to get onto lesser powered headsets. Quest, so we'll see how well they do keep to those targets anyway. But
I have a feeling it'll be like Robo Recall.
Yes, exactly, exactly right. Yeah.
Zombo Recall.
Zombo Recall. Yes, it could be that. The thing about this game is, I grew up. Well, not grew up. I was already quite old when I was reading The Walking Dead, but I was a Walking Dead fan in the early days, and then that is, that's just the definition of a franchise that really outstayed its welcome. The TV show went on forever. The comic book only just ended. There were like a million games. Many of them are terrible. So when I got invited to see it a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't really expecting that much from it. I mean, there's 2 Walking Dead VR games on the horizon. This is one developed by the kind of on the more comic book side by the guys at Skydance Interactive, and then Servios have another one coming called The Walking Dead Onslaught, and it's just the most bizarre situation that there's 2 nearly identical looking Walking Dead VR shooters on the way. But that sums up the situation about the saturation with this franchise perfectly.
Well, keep in mind too that Servios, in the very, very early days of VR, they had zombies on the holodeck.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it seems to make sense for them to make another zombie game.
Yeah, that's true.
But to have multiple official titles,
it's very strange.
It's very strange. It's
odd,
and it's because I believe I've gotten the impression that it's because there is the comic book side, the business side of the Walking Dead comics, and the business side of the Walking Dead TV show. And there's not a great amount of communication between the 2 things.
And the Servios one is the show one, right?
The Servios one is officially licensed show merchandise or whatever.
Show version, whereas this one kind of looks almost the art style and the what they've said about it reminds me of like the Telltale. The original Telltale game, which I haven't played.
And
the first season,
itself,
but
right?
yeah, which is exactly it's that whole kind of universe.
Getting onto the game itself, I wasn't expecting much. I went a couple of weeks ago to go see it. And it is, David put it really, really, really well in the review, which is live now on the site. He gave it a 4 out of 5. He said in his first paragraph that for so long, Arizona Sunshine has been the standard of the zombie VR shooter. The bar was set then all the way back in 2016, basically. And this kind of just raises the bar above it in really significant ways. One thing I've been thinking playing it is obviously Boneworks is only a month old now, which is really like a month and a half old. And one of the things I said in my Boneworks review is, yes, this is an amazing, fantastic playground. It's just when it comes to a structured single player campaign, it really struggles. And I think I haven't played the entire campaign myself, so I can't, speak to that definitively. But the areas they focused on here, it's not the massive kind of playground that Boneworks is. You can't use every weapon, but you can use a heck of a lot of different weapons that you find in the environment. And the physicality in the melee combat. So like if a zombie is on you, you have to grab him by the head, and then if you're going to stab him in the head, you don't just kind of you don't do like a wee waggle kind of thing. You can't just like throw your fists around hopelessly. You have to really kind of thrust your fist down with quite disturbing intent to murder something. What did you say?
What a great pantomime! That was just amazing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. If you're listening to the audio,
I really got that sense that you had a zombie in your hand in this space.
Yeah,
I even
he's done a lot of zombie VR killing.
If you want me to, I can come over next to you.
Yeah, actually, let's do that.
Here, go ahead.
Come on.
Here,
are you going to be able to do this? All right, Heaney, make sure you're getting this. Yeah. So imagine that Carl is a zombie. Okay. I take his head like this, and then this is everyone's dream, isn't it? And then I just stab down here. Yeah, and so not only have I then stabbed Carl. No, stay Carl, please come back. Carl. Not only have I stabbed Kyle, but the knife is going to kind of stay in here. And to get it out, I really again have to kind of like wiggle it around and thrust it out. So that, and then I could have an axe. I could boom like that. I could have a shotgun, and I could, I could, use my fists. I could even have a spoon and try and scoop out his eyeballs, but that won't work. I've tried it. Anyway, thank you, Carl.
Please don't meme that.
Round of applause for Carl, everyone. That was a great demonstration.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. So getting back to it, there is this incredibly impressive physical display in the game. And there is also, what Skydance promises is like a 15-hour kind of campaign. Now, in the review, David says that, it kind of gets to that goal. It does get a little repetitive. The mission structure is not incredibly dynamic, but as a showcase and as kind of almost a refinement of this avenue of physical gameplay that we're starting to see emerge in VR, it's like a really, really impressive game. So, that's out today. It came out like literally an hour before we started recording this.
I think it was JJ. The comments have scrolled up. I'm pretty sure it was JJ said, to me it sounds like a $30 game with a $10 extra tagged on for the Walking Dead price tag. And then JJ said, and then I think it was either Heaney or David in the comments, as us said, keep in mind the campaign's about 18 hours long. And JJ said, fair point. If the end game is there and it's not rinse and repeat, I may see a reason for $40. Yeah.
I think people are going to be quite pleasantly surprised. I think people that played Boneworks will definitely enjoy this. Like people that love Boneworks will definitely. It's Boneworks in a zombie universe, basically. It's not quite there, but it's probably a little more refined from a production side.
It's kind of taken everyone by surprise too. I feel like the last week I've seen so many people mention it and be like, "Wow, I can't wait now." But before that, I remember when I think I wrote the piece when it was one of the really early pieces last year about it, and it wasn't like a big deal back then. Like it wasn't like anyone was. I think
it's what I'm
the Walking
Dead
kind of IP.
Right? It's the Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's like no one even thinks about
another
it.
Walking Dead game. Mm-hmm. But frankly, I think it's like the zombie game to beat. There's a lot of other zombie games coming up this year, and I don't think any of them look quite as impressive as this. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think if you're interested in buying a new VR game this week, it has to be that, right?
Harry, what about you? What have you played this week?
What have I played this week? I played Fail Factory. It was a Go Gear VR game. Fitting name. Go Gear VR game originally that's been ported to the Rift and Quest 2 years after its release. Played through all of that. I played through every level.
Loved it.
That is, definitely didn't love it. That's a strong look. It wasn't the greatest thing ever. It feels very much like, a bit like what we're getting into with Go before. It feels like a Go game that just kind of, you have sixed off, and that makes no difference to anything because you're sitting in a seat the whole time, and it literally tells you not to move. It's like, this is a seated experience. Please sit down. And so you sit down, and it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to move anywhere. The control, you can only use one touch controller at a time, The other one is completely pointless, and you can move that in 6th off, which is good. But the games are so like dated. I mean, I got 4 out of 4. It's 4 rated out of 4, a bit like Angry Birds, like a mobile game. You get like there's levels, you get rated for each level, and the idea is you go back and would improve. Once you finish, you can go back and do better. But on like I reckon 80% of the levels, I got 4 out of 4 immediately, and I actually finished at 57th on the global leaderboard after starting somewhere in the thousands, and I wasn't even really trying. So, and it's my greatest accomplishment in VR yet. 57th on the Fail Factory.
My only question.
Go ahead.
So my only question is it kid friendly? Is it made for kids, and would kids enjoy it?
You say God no.
I said no. It's really kid friendly.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's colorful. It's simple to understand.
It's kid friendly, but it's like,
well,
I'd like to think I give my kids something better than that.
The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners.
It's a bit like it's a bit like
that's a kid friendly.
It's a bit like Wii bowling is kid friendly and kids will enjoy it, but it's like there's so much more on offer than Wii bowling.
Ian, you asked a question, and I'm glad you did, because I was going to ask almost the same question, but worded differently. Who is the target audience for this game?
I think it's easy to. Yeah, exactly. It's like it feels like something you would give to someone to be like, look at what you can do in VR. It feels like a game that when it came out 2 years ago is kind of like something you could just demo to someone, which I think then by virtue of being that way, it makes you want to say that it's kid friendly because you're like, no, it's very simple. But I don't think it's like. I think there are other games you give to a kid that a kid get more depth out of. Just because it's like a simple kind of demo style game doesn't mean that I would want to like my kids play it.
There's this really like kind of weird strand of Oculus published games that just sort of release and they're just out, and it's like, okay, thanks for working on that for the past like 6 to 12 months or whatever. Like I remember the guys that did Defector and Wilson's Heart, they released an Oculus Go Quest game, an Oculus Go launch game called B-Team, which is essentially the same game as Fail Factory. It's just a mini game compilation. It's just the strangest thing. It's like throwing something at the wall in the hopes that maybe it gets like virality and sticks or something like that. But...
See, and I actually disagree, and I do think that there's value in these types of games because that low barrier of entry to just get in and start playing and to play casual 10 to 15 minutes at a time. We're the what?
Well, I mean,
wait, why are you laughing?
Beat Saber is that game. I mean,
no, but also like you can give a kid Tilt Brush and the kid's like, wow, I can like paint in 3D and run around it. It's like, wow, that's a cool experience. Or you could sort some cubes into rubber chutes.
Yep.
Like,
okay, not everybody plays the same games. There are people who are obsessed with Tetris on VR, and I've done it, and I love Tetris. I don't see any value of it being in VR.
You're right. It's just there are better party games in VR, basically.
I think there are better.
This is not the best example of the Christmas morning unwrap it and everyone play this.
I don't know. I think that there is some value to games in every genre.
I agree with you. I'm just saying in this genre.
I think my problem is if you give this to someone who hasn't played much VR, they'll be like, "Is this it? Like, is this what V like?" It's they'd be like, "Okay, so the games are all kind of going to be like this. That it's kind of gimmicky." Mini games. I feel like even though Beat Saber is like you said that it's Beat Saber is that game and it is so like overexposed and everywhere, it is kind of a very VR experience. You kind of go, wow, this is something that I can't really do anywhere else. I could play Fail Factory on a mobile phone if you just gave me flick controls.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's instead we'll just give you waves and waves of zombies to shoot.
I mean, yeah. Okay.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I know. I get
really,
you. I get where you're coming from.
The only thing I want to add here is like we're in an awkward position where we're addressing consumers and trying to let them know what's worth their money in and their time in this space, right? And we all I accidentally popped out of the experience. At the same time, we're also talking to devs and trying to build long-term relationships with these devs where they trust us with bringing their products to us and letting us really assess what we're doing. We respect the work that goes into all of these projects. We understand how hard it is to make these games, but some of them we have to also serve this community of people.
The way I always think of it is the ultimate respect you have to pay is the money in the consumer's hand going over to someone, right? And that, at the end of the day, that rules above any other kind of consideration that you're going to have for any other kind of developer, because it doesn't matter if you're a small team or a big team, and what kind of capabilities you might have. That doesn't change the amount of money that someone's handing over. That's not someone's special money for the developers that have a harder time or something. And everyone spends like a pool of money on one thing, and you have to tell them about the best thing, regardless of the conditions that it was made under, basically. So I agree with you.
Well, Ian, did you play anything? Pistol Whip? Okay.
Yeah, Pistol Whip. Pistol Whip only uses one hand. That's really fun.
Pistol Whip.
All right, it is time to go to our final section of the show this week, and that is the hot topic. And the hot topic this week is whether or not is Facebook's Oculus Quest store curation policy working as intended. And there's a very obvious story that goes along with this. I don't know, Jamie, do you want to tell this story?
Yeah, so it's a very long and multi-layered story, but basically we all know that Oculus Quest is being perceived as a very big success in the VR market, or in regards to in the context of the VR market, at least. Before Quest released, Oculus shared that the store was not going to work the same way as Go and Rift. They were going to have tighter curations. They would need to see things like, could the developer prove like market viability? Could they prove like a unique selling point within the store? Now, that's a very interesting move that is kind of going in the opposite way of what many other like platforms are doing in this day and age. So something like, if you look at what happened to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and to some extent Steam this generation, the past 10 years, they blew their doors wide open, and like anyone can basically publish a PS4 game now, or a game on Steam or on Xbox. And Oculus and Facebook made the case that actually on Quest, we don't think people are going to buy as many Quest games if they're essentially buying what we refer to in the gaming industry as shovelware, right? And something like when the original Wii came out, lots of people were making like really quick, really cheap games where you just kind of waggled, and there were so many of them, and it saturated the market so much that it was called shovelware. And I think the Wii ended up having a quite bad attach rate, which is a term used to describe how many games you buy for a console you buy. So to some extent, you can see what Facebook's talking about. They want to, they want a more curated list of games on a store that week in, week out, people are going to come and check out. And if there's only 2 games, those 2 developers have more chance of success than if there are 10 games and 5 of them are absolute crap. The other side of it, of course, is that some people are not making absolute crap. They're making really, really good games, and Oculus are saying not necessarily no to them, but not right now. Come back later, and a whole different other host of excuses. And it's it's kind of split the VR. I would say it's almost split VR consumers and VR developers down the line in some way, in that consumers are quite happy with what they're getting. Some consumers are, and lots of developers are really, really annoyed that their products aren't getting on the store. And that all came to a head this week, as we revealed on Upload, when with SideQuest, which is a side-loading thing for Oculus Quest, they launched their first paid app, which is To the Top, which was a game that famously was one of the first rejected for Quest. Anyway, that's caught you up.
Really nice summary. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you very much.
Summary.
I'm following
year worth of reporting there that you summed up in the
basically.
Very...
Out of breath.
Anyway, I don't know that To the Top was first.
There were some other paid ones. I know that. But this is like the first kind of
big one.
But to be fair, I think it's the first like paid experience that would be equivalent to something you might buy on the Oculus store.
Yeah, exactly,
I think it's the most expensive, and it's obviously a fully fledged kind of more of a fully fledged game than perhaps some other things on SideQuest.
Yeah.
So what you've said brings up 2 very specific components to this conversation. Component number 1 is, we know through watching the app stores and the Play Store grow and give millions of options in terms of what silly, stupid, pointless apps versus really valuable and productive versus entertaining, high-end games, low-end games, there's all different things. Is Oculus hindering that growth by having such stringent policies on what they offer? Are they, their curation, is it actually reducing? And I understand the concept of shovelware. The other concept is by having curation, are they pushing developers away? Are they saying, you might have an idea, but if we don't like it, it's not going on our store? And is that hindering? And Ian, do you have some comments
you want to reply to? And
there's one comment which I think links into kind of this, is how can Fail Factory, which is just shovelware, get on the store but not to the top? Communication on why some games are being denied is non-existent. The same story with Crisis VR Grade. Yeah, it's an Oculus Studios published game, I think is the short answer to that one.
So I mean, like, that's kind of like that. There's an ally for that game within Facebook who is able to probably help. And that's kind of like that's the underlying grumbling that you would hear in the dev community, is that you've got to know someone in Facebook, to
people have mentioned
your
Pixel
work.
Ripped as well as another example of a game that was denied.
Pixel Rip's a really, really strange one. Just for context, the sequel Pixel Rip 1995 is officially listed on Quest. It's coming soon in spring, but the original game so far, the developer has been told will not be on Quest, which is so strange.
It's tough. So, but like, all right. So I think there's something I want to underscore here, and that's I've mentioned it on a couple previous recording sessions, but I want to really expand on it here and talk about the evolution of what happened with the App Store on iPhones and Androids, where they both, or at least with Apple, they launched with a very curated system that was $10 to $20 for every app you installed, and they're all like, I wouldn't say they're all great. I mean, I don't use half of them anymore 10 years after the App Store. They've been replaced by a lot better things. But back when it launched, there was like Super Monkey Ball, I think, was one of the things where you move your phone around to move the ball around. It was cool, an interesting concept to launch with. But what ended up happening is the market for iPhone apps became so large that it became impossible for good devs to stand out.
Yep.
And it started just slowly, year after year, $9, $8, $7, $6 the price, And now every app is free, and that's the only way to actually make a profit, is to make an app free and then somehow make a service that you get either subscriptions for, or you sell, or worse, you sell the data of the people who are using your service in some aggregated system. And so you've got this 10-year process where we had a system where people paid for their apps, and over time it eventually evolved into a system that people really feel uncomfortable with and hate, yet they can't stop themselves from tapping free whenever the free button is there.
Right,
so
because
we don't want that to happen for VR.
But the suffix to that is that everybody has a phone in their pocket right now.
Yeah.
And in 2007, they didn't.
Yep.
And in 2010, they didn't. And in 2012, they started to. And that evolution put a phone in everybody's pocket. If we were to have an unregulated, curated app store like SideQuest, that it might have a huge boom of shovelware, if you want to put it that way, will that put a headset on everybody's head in the next 3 years?
Just some more comments. Kev, I noticed before, spoke about touring carts, which I think is another interesting one, because that is on, I believe that was rejected, and it's on PSVR and Steam and whatnot already. Draken says the only reason something shouldn't be on the store is because it's a virus or performance is bad. Every other reason is silly. Gerald says, Gerald says, so I call this out at OC5 as a concern. I think overall it's positive, as it makes it more viable for devs who do get in to make money on Quest. And then he also said a lot of Quest pitches lack the signs of success needed to really show Oculus that a project will be completed and hit whatever their quality bar is internally. And then Draken has pointed out Fortnite is free and it crunches over 15 million data points per minute. And we've got
what does that mean?
I'm not sure. I think he was talking about in regards to. I'm not sure what the data point. But anyway, and then Macledge Brett says, don't know about Quest games, but the sale on Rift games that's happening now is full of shovelware. Yeah, because Rift doesn't have the same, obviously the same curation. So
they're probably referring to like the size of the server capacity for Fortnite. Yeah, it's like it's a massive undertaking for them to make all that work. But like that's where we get to talk about Horizon, what the promise of Horizon is to Facebook, and it starts getting really interesting to see what Facebook does with its platform this year, right? So they bought Beat Saber, and they own the top app on pretty much every app store. Like you go on Steam, and the top app is going to be Beat Saber, pretty much all the time in terms of every possible metric, hours spent and all those things. And now that's owned by Facebook. What does Facebook do over time with products like Beat Saber to anchor its platform or to make people want to use it? Like, Beat Saber is a fantastic product at whatever are they charging, $25 or $30 to download it. Then you've got the music packs that are on top. Like that, like I'm willing to buy those music packs and pay for those songs, but what happens if Facebook chooses to make that a free to play product, and
I can
somehow
very much
does
see
that
that
expand it even larger?
I can see that. I can see that that'd be so. If you think about now, we've got a fairly not slow rate of music packs, but if you think that if that sped up a bit and you could just buy many more songs and music packs, you go to free to play like a mobile game, and then you'd have like the kind of Beat Saber songs or a limited capacity, and then you just buy more songs. I feel like that would not that I would like that, but I can see it happening for sure. Draken also says, I think Oculus will add multiplayer to Beat Saber because social. Which,
of course, I mean it's been planned, and they're definitely going to double down on it.
But getting back to the curation thing, I think the answer of if it's working or not is just going to be different for every type of person you ask, right? I mean, essentially, there's 4 types of people you need to ask here, and that's the people that want to use their Quest for everything and anything, and therefore are quite well tuned into side quest. The kind of more casual Quest users that don't even know anything about side quest, don't know what side loading an app is, and are very happy every week to turn on and find something that it has been curated and pushed to them because someone else has already said this is a quality product that is going to sell well. Then you've got to ask the developers that were there at like Quest launch, who scores and scores of them say, well, our products have sold immeasurably more on Quest than they have on any other platform, like double in cases, if not more. And then you've got to ask the people that haven't been accepted yet. And to raise a kind of sore point, something we didn't say in the news this week is that Playful, the developers of Lucky's Tale, so one of the first ever VR developers, really, they were there on Oculus Rift launch day as a free game for people that bought Oculus Rift. They announced significant layoffs. And is there a story behind there where they wanted to get Lucky's Tale on Quest and they can't? They weren't allowed because maybe it didn't. Well, I don't know. Maybe it didn't perform well enough. Maybe Oculus didn't think people were interested in the IP anymore. And are people out of jobs because Oculus said no?
But with this, my other question, because I don't have a full understanding of how the process works, is when you pitch them a Quest version, can you pitch it to them before you really begin work on a port? Like, can you go, this is what we want to do? Like in Pixel Rip's case, for example, with the original, do they have to port it to Quest, then go try the game out on Quest? Here's also our pitch.
They encourage you to tell them what you want to do, before you even start doing it, right?
They don't.
Yes. So you don't need a build.
In Facebook's defense, they're trying very hard to make sure devs don't spend time on something that's not going to make it through. So they don't want that horror situation where people spend a lot of time and effort on something that's not going to get accepted.
You can pitch before porting. Yeah.
So, but it's not. But to your point, it's not realistic. Like, a lot of devs need to prove out their idea to a certain extent, even to themselves, before they actually feel confident enough to go and pitch Facebook. But it's really disappointing that there isn't an early access system for Quest, right? That's the understanding. Yeah.
For me, the curation is simply to make sure that any app or game that they put out is performant and is capable of utilizing everything that the Quest has to offer in a way that is not sickness-inducing, that you're going to break immersion. I get that type of
I think the
curation.
original Pixel Rift would have passed that bar.
Yeah.
If the sequel's going to pass it.
But then I think stuff like... Ooh, hang on, my headphones fell off.
Well,
an Australian spider's climbing up his neck.
Jeez.
Watch out, Harry.
There we go.
there may be other performant issues with Pixel Ripped that is
that's
okay
true.
on
I
a
don't know.
PC, but we don't know what the that SoC on in the Quest what can it handle? What is the upper echelon? And but I will say this in terms of curation is that value. Value is relative. Value is relative to the perceiver. Somebody might see value. I know people who have spent hundreds of dollars playing the Harry Potter or the Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
They spend hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
I would never do that on a free game. That's absurd, but other people do. So making that level of curation, I think, is a little too much, in my opinion. But there's other reasons.
Back to the playful thing, like there's a very big difference between Facebook funding a studio's project for Quest and taking an accepted pitch. Like
that's true.
I think there's a fair question of whether Playful was in a position to make that port without another injection of Facebook money.
I'm just using them as an example, right? How many other VR studios have gone under that we don't know about or whatever because of failed Quest pitches at the end of the day? How many developers right now are like counting on Quest because their Steam VR sales have tanked and they don't know, and Facebook's saying no, and they're like, what do we do?
I mean, picture that developer walking out of the pitch meeting and got a big no. And now they're walking back to go tell their teammates that, guess what?
I don't understand what the downside is of Facebook buying SideQuest. I think it's been it's sort of been, I think SideQuest is open to it. I don't think that they're, that they've said, no, we would never, it's not that type of relationship between this platform and what Facebook is. And it seems like we're destined for a kind of, collision there where, I sense it in the community where people are discussing this, right? Where I don't want my $15 app that I bought on SideQuest to suddenly in some future update get broken.
Yeah.
Because it went this odd route to get to me as an end consumer. I want, and then we relate this to the other thing of like early access. And I want to bring up this thing that happened that people might not remember, but I loved the mobile jam that they did way back.
Oh yeah, for VR.
Right.
I answered that. Yeah.
Why would they not? Like, I think that's something that Facebook has so missed is like, why not do another mobile jam? Why not buy SideQuest? Why not roll out this early access program? And why not, really embrace the experimentation again with a new wave of developers? It seems like it would just build this out exactly like they're hoping to.
One really interesting point from Oculus Connect 6 last year that I thought said so much about the mentality of Quest is that every year at Oculus Quest, John Carmack has done app reviews where developers had traditionally brought in Gear VR and Go, shown him their Gear VR and Go apps, and he has reviewed them. And traditionally, this might not have happened every year, and I might be barking up the wrong tree, but it's just my theory. Traditionally, that has either been streamed or later put up on YouTube. And this year, I was really looking forward to it because they were focusing on Quest. And it never appeared on YouTube. It's like the one session from the entire thing that never appeared on YouTube, wasn't streamed. And to me, that was, again, this is entirely speculation, but I just thought that sent a message of them controlling what people are saying about Quest and experimental Quest development and early Quest development online. They didn't want a bunch of people seeing a bunch of games that they thought, oh, that's cool, I'll look forward to that, because there was a very good chance that later down the line they were going to be told, actually, no, you can't.
Just quickly, before the comments scroll up, Gerald made a good point. He said the three main things they're looking for that he's found is quality of experience, chance of success, and risk of incompletion. So it's not just, okay, you can publish this, because you do get an Oculus representative as well, he said. So it's not just, okay, you can publish it, but it's, okay, here's an Oculus contact, here's some marketing, etc. So they don't want to approve someone who's planning to make their first ever game and saying, I'm going to build an FPS MMO, like something very unrealistic.
Yeah.
Which I think in theory works, but...
Yeah, Gerald knows what's up. I mean, Gerald's been around for a while. He's a good guy. Yeah. He knows what's up. Ian, just to kind of put a cap on this, you mentioned about Facebook buying SideQuest And I hadn't actually thought about that. And it sent a shiver down my spine because I can picture buy it, kill it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's what would happen. And I don't want to see that. I want to see that level of competition, that independence, that
But what is
non-curation.
it's not real competition, I guess, is I think like the underlying concern here of the community. It's a platform that exists explicitly with Facebook's permission, which can change at any time. And I think to your point, I mean, like, that's the fear, is that Facebook's permission can change at any given time. So we want not to need Facebook's permission to become a developer in order to put whatever the heck we want on our quests. That's like, it seems like a wrong type of gate to put in place for people who just want to mess with their hardware more than the average person. It's not just a developer thing to want to do.
If SideQuest were to die, that would not stop people from sideloading stuff. You can always
No.
sideload. The fact that SideQuest
Yeah.
exists just makes that process easier
But you
for
still,
an average consumer.
even if you want to sideload, you still have to register as a developer, right? Because that lets you
Yeah.
put the quest. So even if you
Right.
didn't have side quests, it's still an issue of, well, for a consumer who just wants to mess around and do this, they have to technically register as a developer. They
But for
can't
them
just
to destroy that side loading capabilities would be a hindrance on bigger developers.
But
So
that's kind of my point is, like, they could
yeah.
buy side quests and not shut down side loading. But at the same time, they could also change this developer only. Why force everyone to say they're a developer just to sideload content? Yes, yes, you should still hit the, I know I'm putting myself at risk,
right.
button to, put that up
Just
in front of
acknowledge
people
that.
to warn them
Yeah.
what can
Sure.
happen when they do this. It's just, to your point, I don't want to shut down. I don't want them to buy and kill. They still
Right.
need this option. That's why this is still on a collision course, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are worried about their stuff not working. They're also worried about it getting shut down. It's a convoluted part of the whole Quest offering, and it needs to be streamlined and simplified. And it seems like there's a pathway to really unleashing more creativity via Quest. It's just going to suck if you have to go into Horizon to unleash that creativity
Well,
and use your
right.
Facebook account and
Yeah.
all those things.
But I don't think that it'll kill the concept of sideloading. It'll just make it more difficult. I mean, that type of thing has been around since the early, cell phone days. I mean, tablets and stuff. I mean, people have been rooting and putting custom ROMs on all of these devices for years. So I don't think, even if SideQuest were to go away, I don't think that would kill the
Yeah.
concept. Okay, well, this has been a great conversation. We've gone on for a long time. Is there any extra comments that you want to?
A few last comments, just to point out. Draken said, "There's also the elephant in the room. Piracy is possible with sideloading. They might kite sideloading altogether. Sony did that with PS3 and Linux support. True, I can't see them cutting sideloading only because you need that for developers." And then Gerald said, on the opposite side, if Oculus fully opens up the Oculus store to anyone, that could also really hurt SideQuest, which is a interesting flip side to consider, I guess.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that we should wrap up this episode. Like I said, it's been fantastic, great conversation. I think, Jamie, actually, is there any fun stuff that you want to tell everybody about that's going on right now on our site?
So I mentioned it a little earlier, but we just put up our Walking Dead review. So you should definitely go check that out. David spent a long time getting through the game for that. Big VR release, probably the biggest release we're probably going to see until like Alyx. So that's something we want to look out for. We just put up the 3rd episode of the VR Culture Show. Now, this is our kind of semi-regular show where we talk about a lot of kind of non-gaming experiences, very cool VR films and business, things like that. In this one, we have a really fun episode. We actually went to Japan and we filmed some really cool VR arcades. We filmed some VR developers out there. Lots of really cool, crazy stuff to see in that one. So definitely go check that out. Ian's pointing at me. Ian might have more.
To the Top. I want to mention the To the Top interview. Heaney, can you drop that in the comments, the link to that YouTube video? We separated out the interviews this week, and we did that interview with the creator of SideQuest, Shane Harris. We've got a 20-minute interview where we talked about To the Top and how that was their, this big paid game that's now available via SideQuest, and if you want more content, we've got that interview out there for you to check out.
Right. So the interview that you would normally see at the end of the show is a separate video, and there should be by now a description
It's
in
now
the link.
in the comments. You can check that out. There's a
Okay.
link there.
In the
He
comments.
just dropped
Yes,
it there.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Definitely check that out next. And then also make sure you're going to uploadvr.com for all of your, as I say in the beginning, latest news and comments and interviews and all sorts of fun stuff. So I want to say thanks to the panel and thanks to everybody who's watching. We'll see you in the future.
Godspeed.
Bye.